From Wacko Chaco Studio, I'm Ashwin Chaco, and this is The Fruitful Life, a show about the business of creativity and the stories behind the creators that have made their dreams a reality. Hey folks, welcome to The Fruitful Life, the one and only James Martin. Hi, James.
Hello, mate. How you doing? I remembered to say hi. There you go.
Yeah,
How's
on
things going? Are
point.
you well? You good?
Good, yeah, great. It's
Awesome.
so good to connect across the waves, even though we're
Yeah.
just across the pond.
It's a big pond, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I think also it's Monday, and I think we both got days off
Yeah,
today, have we? I know
days
it's a
off. Yeah,
yeah,
bank
days off,
holiday.
yeah. But yeah, I don't think people like us have days off. But yeah, it's a bank holiday here, and is it Memorial Day? Labor Day? What
I
is it
can't
over?
remember. I
One of
think
them.
ours is next Yeah, next Monday. So yours is this Monday. Ours is next Monday.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know that. There you go. Learning today already on my day off.
Right. So for the very small audience that might not know you, can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, my name is James Martin. Many, or maybe not, might know me as Made by James. I am coining myself right now as the non-conformulator of logo design, just because it sounds cooler than logo designer. Um, and I'm an unfiltered creative who wakes up every single morning and tries to help other creators. I'm a designer ultimately that helps designers. I have a focus in brand identity. I've been running a design studio called Baby Giant Design Co. for the last 12-ish years now. And we specialize in brand, web, and motion. But like I mentioned a minute ago, I am as my role within that agency and my role as Made by James, I am fully focused on building logos, brand identity, and the systems, brand identity systems that evolve from those. So yeah, kind of evolving into a bit of a accidental educator, I suppose that's probably a good way to kind of call it. Published author, father, friend, human, lots of things, mate. Lots of things. Art buyer. I've literally just bought 2 pieces of art off Ashwin in like the last second because I saw them behind him. It's a great marketing technique, by the way. Yeah, so that's basically me in a small nutshell, big nutshell.
Brilliant. So I'm looking forward to digging into some of your journey. But before we do, the first question I like to ask all my guests is if you could be a fruit, what fruit would it be and why?
Fucking hell. If I could be a fruit. The funny thing is, I'm going to segue a little bit. Then I'm going to come back to this. Basically, I've just gone on my sugar-free journey. So I used to eat loads of chocolate, loads of sweets. So I've now rediscovered fruit. Do you know what I mean? Like fruit. Obviously, there's sugar in fruit, but I'm not talking about like refined sugar and all the rest of it. So this is quite an apt conversation right now because I'm eating a shitload of fruit, basically. So if I could be a fruit, could I be a tomato?
Yeah, you could be a
Yeah.
tomato.
Because most people think it's a vegetable, and people are never quite sure about me. So I think I'd be the one. I say the non-conformulator. So there you go. I'll be the tomato in your fruits.
Brilliant.
There you go.
Amazing. You're the second tomato I've got.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Damn it. Damn it. No, I'll have to change it. No. Do you know what? Because I've always thought it was a vegetable, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something to do with seeds, isn't it? I think it's
Yeah.
something to do with seeds. But yeah, I would be intrigued to know who the other tomato is because I'm probably going to have to go and hang out with them now.
Well, it's coming out next Tuesday, so
Is it? I'll be sure to listen. Yeah, I'll be sure to listen.
So I'm curious about your own journey. Were you always creative as a kid? What drove you down the path you're on today?
Yeah, it's an interesting path, like a wobbly, windy path. But I think it is for most people. Just some people wobbles are a little bit more wobbly, aren't they?
Yeah.
I suppose. I mean, creatively, I was always into creativity. I much preferred being in the art class than I did the science class or the maths class or the English class. So creativity and art and design always felt like a much safer space for me as a kid because I was never particularly intelligent, like classically school intelligent. I was very sporty, and I think with the sport, the kind of creative bulked onto that. But I was never top of the class in anything which should be classified, 20, 30 years ago as an academic subject because art and design was always a hobby. Do you know what I mean? You never make
Yeah.
any fucking money out of that. Get a proper job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look who's laughing now, mate. So yeah, I think it was definitely a rocky path. And like I said, because like through the schooling and everything that I had, it was never a direction that was pushed or offered. But ultimately, I ended up getting kicked out of school. Like I'll go. I mean, we could go quite. I mean, I'm always quite honest and raw about my past, and I think that's important. So, at the age of 11, I was sexually abused by my maths teacher, which kind of threw me off in like a big trust spiral. Like I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust my teachers, trust my friends, trust anybody. He abused that teacher. So it kind of threw my schooling and my early teens and my late teens into a bit of a drug fueled whirlwind with alcohol and like I said, so at school I ended up stealing stuff and to fuel my drug habit. But I'd steal laptops and I was entrepreneurial. That's what I like to call it. But some people might call it being a twat. But yeah, which I call it now. Yeah, I know it's not right. So, but yeah, so and obviously like I got kicked out of school, and then for 2 years after that, I I got kicked out of home. Like my parents kicked me out at 17. So from like the ages of 17 to 19, I struggled. Didn't have any direction. Lost a lot of friends. Lost a lot of traction and clarity in my. I mean, even at 17, 18, 19, you don't have a big clue what you want. But mine was just hanging with the wrong people. Not just generally not being a nice human. But the funny thing is, creativity was something that I always had, something that a place, like I said, I always felt safe. So after 2 years of messing shit up, I kind of after one drug fueled drum and bass night, remember lying on my bed in the morning just after we got back. And I had like work in a couple of hours and I was still absolutely fucking buzzing. Do you know what I mean? I was thinking, what on earth am I doing with my life? This was a Sunday. I was thinking, what on earth am I doing with my life? And the next day, on that following Monday, I went and enrolled in college to do an art foundation. Like I said, like art was the only thing at that time that I could grab onto. There was nothing else I really trusted enough. I trusted that I could have fun being a creative, I think. So I did an art foundation and ended up doing from the art foundation. I don't know if you know what an art foundation is. I think you do something similar over there. But it's like you do a bit of sculpture, a bit of graphic design, a bit of fine art, a bit of textiles, all this kind of stuff. And then at the end of the year, your tutor kind of says, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. And my tutor at that time said, I think you should do graphic design. And at that point, I mean, we're talking 20 plus years ago, I had no idea what graphic design was.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, all right, that sounds fun. I'll do that. So I did a 2-year HND, and then that got me on to a degree at a local university. And in between that, I was kind of doing a tattoo apprenticeship. I went and taught for a year to the PGC, I think it's called. And then, like, I was working at a cafe, serving teas and coffees, and one of the locals who came in, his mate just started a design studio or a creative agency or whatever you want to call it. And he said, did you want me to see if you could get an interview or something, And I was like, yeah, it's better than making tea and making coffee. Or, to be fair, though, as soon as I started at the agency, all I did was make tea and coffee for everybody. But, I think we've all got to start somewhere. But yeah, so, and then I stayed there for about 5 years, and then had the idea to start Baby Giant Design Co. And that was now 12 years ago. And now I'm sitting here talking to you, mate. So that is my whirlwind since the age of about 11 that I've just given you in a short form. But I think it's important, like, because I think like when people look at like Made by James now, successful designer, published author, 400,000 almost on Instagram, people think, oh, he's, got it made. But there's been a 20-year plus journey to that person. I think that's something that I'm always trying to tell people and trying to drive home in people is that, patience is power. Never before has the need to be famous, been a bigger problem than it is now for designers. If I haven't made it in 2 years, I'm doing something else. If I'm not successful in a year and a half, I'm doing something else. Where most of the people that I look up to and that I think, beautifully now people that look up to me, 20 years, it's a long freaking time. But I also think I've got another 20 years to go. Do you know what I mean? Like a 40-year career ultimately. So yeah, that's me, I suppose. In a little like nugget.
Yeah, it's so true though, because especially with social media, you see the tip of the iceberg and assume that, they just turned around one day and got Instagram famous, and so that's why they're so successful. But they don't see like the 20 years of struggle and pain and hardship and also, that it took to get there.
Exactly. And creating content consistently for a decade to get any sort of growth. And like you say, it's like I truly believe I know I wouldn't be where I am without that audience, the opportunities that I've got now, but I wouldn't have that audience if I didn't have enough patience to do it, even if that wasn't a thing. Because I was a designer before Instagram was even a thought in somebody's mind. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't even around when I started, It's definitely a powerful tool, and I owe a lot to it. But I think, again, like you say, I think it's all the hard work that has happened. And it's not all like social media can become a bit of a highlight reel, can't it? Like, these are all the great people I've worked with, and this is how awesome I am, and check out how great my face looks. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but my point is that like, and that's something that I've always tried to be very wary of. Like, I share my work, I share work that hasn't made the cut. I try and keep it quite light. I try and keep it quite valuable and educational, but I also share a lot of my past, struggles with alcohol, drugs, sexual abuse. I'm trying to use my platform as a very safe space for people to understand that there's always a human behind the social human. I think it's important because there's any right way or wrong way, to kind of do it. But like I said, when I said to myself, if I ever get into a place of trust or authority, I try and use my voice for good, rather than to be self-serving. So it's been fun. And like I said, I'm only just getting started, mate. Do you know what I mean? Got another 20 years of this.
Yeah. Putting the social back in social media.
There you go. There you go. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. speaking of social media and building a presence, I'm curious
Mhm.
about like how conscious an effort it was when it first started. Were you like on building a brand? Obviously, you're making brands for other people,
Mm.
but a lot of the times, as designers or as illustrators, creators, it's so much harder for us to create our own brand because we want to do
Yeah.
like a little bit of this and a little bit of this and
Yeah.
the brand feels like it's encasing your
Yeah.
creativity in a box. So
Yeah. Yeah,
what,
that's yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, never before has the term personal branding been so important. I think you think of wait, like even before Instagram, you had like YouTube or the rise of the influencer
Yeah,
through
yeah.
YouTube channels and all the rest of it. And Instagram has kind of catapulted that again to another level. Like as I say, like it's funny, like entrepreneurs want to be influencers, and influencers now want to be entrepreneurs. Like it's funny, it's hilarious, isn't it? But like for me, like I said, I've always been. I mean, it happens more and more. I'm not going to lie. Like I get more and more comfortable with who I am, what my purpose is, what my mission is. But I also understand that my brand is integral to me becoming and getting to the place I want to be. Not
Mm,
just when it comes to working with the type of clients I want, but also like when I coach somebody or go to a speaking gig or do anything, write a book, like my brand is literally the only brand that nobody can tell me they want it bigger or make it pop or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm totally in control of that. And so I've
yeah.
always, I grew up kind of watching like the best in the business, people like, Lincoln Design
Yeah,
Co.
yeah.
And, they're like Dan's funny enough, like a really good buddy of mine now, but like 10, 12 years ago when I was had no freaking idea what I was doing. Those are the people that I was looking up to, and I believe that success leaves clues.
Mm,
And I was watching what they were doing, and they were like they would always make time for themselves and their own brand, whether that be creating a bunch of hats, building out some assets for themselves, like anything that they touched, doing like internally, they would brand it. Everything would be branded. And I now know logo designers who don't have a logo. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that blows my fucking mind. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because I see like if I'm asking my client to invest in me as a brand identity designer, somebody who creates brand systems and that can help them, communicate to their audience, like my brand is an essential part to prove to them that I can do that. And the investment that I put in, the time and investment I put into my website, like my illustration stuff, my logos, my brand as a whole, is something that I try and do all the time. I'm always trying to, like I say, it's not always me doing the work. Often I'm partnering with Lincoln Design Co., other illustrators. Like I personally believe I can out logo most people on this planet. Like I reckon if somebody gave me a brief and they asked me to create a brand identity, I could stack up against some of the best. I believe. And but when it comes to like illustration or like asset creation on that kind of scale, I'm not the best at that. So what I do is I pay people who are the best at that. Do you know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
allows me to keep my brand moving forward, even when I physically can't. So I'm always trying to partner with illustrators, creatives, artists, sign writers, whatever it is, to create stuff for Made by James. Obviously I'm art directing it, project managing it, giving the brief, being the client in that, but also letting them do what they want to do because it allows me to keep doing what I do. Because I think another big problem within our industry, I don't know if I'm answering this question, but I'm off on one now, is I think like creatives or
Yeah.
artists or designers think they have to do everything by themselves.
Yeah.
And what it's actually doing is it's stopping those people from fulfilling their potential because they're so in their own heads of like just doing this, or like my stuff can wait, my stuff can wait. The thing is, if you let your stuff wait, other people who are working on their stuff are overtaking you.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have no work.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're like, what do I do with my life? And that happens to so many people, is that they're so busy doing, they're not forward thinking. They're not looking far enough into the future. Okay, so who do I want to be? Rather than, I understand you've got to stay in the present, but
Yeah.
I think it was a chap called, he used to be the CEO of Disney. I can't remember. I watched a masterclass with him, Bob Iger. And he said, the thing that I do is I have 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the future. And that is something that stuck with me forever. I'm like, this is what I'm doing now. This is what's really important. This is what needs my attention. But also, like, where am I going? Like, what do I need? Who do I want to become? What do I need to help me become that person? So, like, when I go to, like, I've been doing, like, I did my first speaking gig abroad, like in this April. But for the last 5 years, I've been building my brand. So when it came to building my presentation, it looked fucking sick. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I had everything I'd ever need. Like if I ever want to create an apparel line, I've got everything I ever need because I'm investing in my own brand and my own future, knowing that one day all of this effort is going to be paying off like it is now. So when the book came out, I had everything I ever needed, as well as all my logos. So, I think it's, like, if anybody is listening here and is in that situation where they don't spend enough time, or they feel that they're not spending enough time with their own brand, it probably means that you are not spending enough time with your own brand, and you should, because your personal brand or your agency's brand or whatever vessel you're in should ultimately be your best asset, because people now come to me and they go, I can see what you've done online. I'm just Beard, from Shedfield in the UK, in a little village of like 3,000 people, who now has 400,000 followers on Instagram alone through his ability to market himself.
Yeah.
And that is the game that we're in, is we have to, like, I would actually say that I am much better at marketing than I am logo design. The good thing is, I'm also quite good at logo design, so it does. So the two do go hand in hand. But I'd much prefer to be better at marketing than anything, because it's what can get you to where you want to be, and it's something that, like you say, a lot of creatives almost, because we're naturally introverted, I think, as a culture, as a industry. Not all of us, I think we all start introverted, but then we, by doing things like this and stories on Instagram and the odd speaking gig, you become more and more out of your shell. But there's a lot of creatives who stop there. I don't want to put myself, and it's comfort zones and all the rest of it. They can be very dangerous. So, the ability to get out of those comfort zones and try and push yourself and market yourself is really important. So just trying to do that every day, even a little bit, would get you a lot further. Like, I read a book by Austin Kleon called Show Your Work. And that changed everything for me. It's like, share something small every single day. And I was like, Austin, I'll do that. And that's exactly what I did. And it's worked. Do you know what I mean? Just sharing whatever it is, an idea, a thought, a sketch, and then just soon it becomes muscle memory and habit. You create stuff now without even thinking about it.
So true. I think you make a very important point that we spend too much time working in the business rather than on the business. So like, you're so busy focused on like getting the clients and all that. Whereas if you were actually building the business, building your personal brand, that automatically attracts clients. you know, and
It
it's a
would
hard thing
exactly.
to get your head around. But like
Yeah,
the more you build out your personal brand, the easier it is for people to tell, oh, this is exactly what he does, and this is how
yeah,
he does it, or
yeah,
she does it, and then it makes it easier for them to be, oh, okay, he's proven that he could do
yeah,
this over and over again consistently.
yeah. And it's
That's
exactly
why.
that. We got to remember, like that nowadays, you know, like content creation is, is the thing. It's never been easier. A designer 20, 30 years ago would work probably with his local village, then his city, then maybe the capital, but he'd probably be quite UK based. Like 80% of my clients are abroad.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
my market now is the world with the internet and with reach and with the engagement on Instagram and all the rest of it. So you start to become slightly recession proof and you start to become, obviously if your work's good enough and all the rest of it. But like you say, I think what happens is that people spend so much time working, on other people's businesses that they forget about their own, and that ultimately catches up with you over time. And all these people that say, "Oh, sorry, like, I'm sorry, I've been off Instagram. I haven't posted for a while. I've just been so busy." I mean, fuck off, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, get a grip. You know what I mean? Like, just if you don't want to be on social media, that's fine, but you are never too busy to market yourself. I don't think.
mm,
I just think it's an easy thing, easy out. Or sorry, I can't do this because I'm too busy.
yeah,
Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? But I saw you on your stories down the pub drinking with your mates, mate. So, like, how busy are you? Do you know what I mean? So, you tell me that you're doing one thing, but you're clearly not doing the other thing. And then one day you're going to run out of work and you wish you'd never gone to the pub. So, I'm probably going off on a bit of a rant here, but my point is that like you should never be too busy. Like if
yeah,
you really want to get to where you want to be and you really want to build something of worth and you really want to leave an impact on this planet, you will find the time to
yeah.
market yourself. Because if you're not marketing yourself, you're not going to get any work. If you're not doing any work, you're not going to create anything ultimately. So, yeah, it's an interesting kind of dichotomy, this kind of these different stories going on.
I,
Yeah,
I'd like to dig into that a little more about
sure,
marketing
I'd love
because
that. Yeah.
I think marketing is something that most creatives struggle with because they
Hmm.
want the work to speak for itself, but it can't,
Sure.
you know? So,
Yeah.
what has been your, like, if you were to break down marketing in its simplest form, how would you do that to an aspiring creator who wants to start marketing themselves, who's
As
there, he's on the crux, but just needs that little push?
Yeah, so as in, I'll try and break this because I mean this is a big, big subject. So I
Yeah,
suppose, like, what are some tips that I could give
yeah, yeah,
people to get going? I mean, ultimately, your best asset is you. You are the most unique thing on the planet. There's only one of you. I think what a lot of people are doing online is they're constantly trying to be somebody else, or they're constantly chasing a tail that isn't theirs. So
mm,
they've heard somebody over here saying, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. And then they go and do it even if they don't want to.
yeah,
Or they're so busy copying other people and ending up trying to be them. And then when they don't become them, they're like, oh, well, it worked for him. Why is it not working for me? I don't think people are leaning into their own uniqueness enough, their own
yeah,
authentic selves, like being truly honestly them. Because, and I was the same for a very long time, you try and be the person that you think your clients want you to be. So you
mm,
try and be more polished, or you try to be show you have more experience than you probably do. You show like all these certain things. So number one would definitely be as true to yourself as you possibly can be, and also be okay with the fact that you are learning. I'm still learning. The best creators on the planet are still learning. And we're all going somewhere. We're just all at slightly different points. And I think embracing the stage that you're at is essential. Rather than reading something from an expert, then changing the colors and putting it on your own Instagram and pretending it's your stuff, that's not the way to grow. This is maybe flip that, read, learn, absorb, but then say, this is what I learned from this person. This is how this makes me feel. Actually bring your own voice, your own tone, your own ideas in and around that. It doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong, they're yours, so they can't be right or wrong. So, and your opinions will constantly change. The stuff that I used to do 5 years ago, I would never do now, because I've learned and I've continued to grow. But it's all about leaning into yourself. And then I think that is really important. Our faces.
Yeah.
Hiding behind work is a fool's game now. If you're not actively showing yourself, being on camera, getting in front of your audience or generally your work, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for the client to connect with you on a human level. With the rise of AI, with the rise of all of this computer technology, which can seemingly do everything in seconds, human connection is going to be the difference. Human-powered brands, like my friend Anelli Hansen would say, is integral. Like, people want to work with people, and they ultimately want to work with people that they feel that they can get on with. So if you're being yourself online, you will attract people that want to work with you and want to spend time with you and want to give you money for what you do. So that's two. Finally, I would say there's a slight psychology around it when it comes to marketing. And like, I've learned from people like my coaches and stuff in the past, and there's kind of like, and reading different books and all the rest of it, is like, there's like what we could break down to like 4 colors, like 4 people, 4 different types of clients, 4 different people who are looking at your content. There's like the reds, who are really, really impulsive. There's the greens, who are emotional. There are blues, who like detail, they like structure, and then there are yellows, who like to piss around and fuck around. Do you know what I mean? So, if you look at your content in that way, so if you are just, for example, a designer sharing purely case studies, you're only hitting the blue people. You're only telling people the detail. So you're not connecting with people on an emotional level. You're not allowing yourself to interact with people who want to think and act really quickly. I'll give you some examples of these as we go on. And then obviously the yellows, if you're not chucking out a cat meme every now and again, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a cat meme. But you can see, like, when you work the psychology element into the stuff that you create, can you connect with people on a human level? Can you get them to know you? Can you get them to emotionally invest in you, telling your stories, sharing your thoughts, in and out of work? So that would be how you kind of connect with your greens. Your reds, who are impulsive, they want content, for example, that they can just, for example, I'm just talking as a logo designer, like A, B, C, or D. Which one do you like? They feel like they're getting involved. They don't have to think too much. And then when you're talking about, we talked about the blues, who like detail, like the breakdown case studies and all the rest of it. Then your yellows, can you make people smile? Can you entertain people? Can you make people laugh? Can you make people cry? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think this kind of, if you can like get these 4 colors to somewhat, it's impossible to kind of get them all working together. But if you look at your content right now, or the stuff you're sharing, even your website, if it's all detail, it's going to feel cold. No emotion to it. So you're not connecting with people on a human level. So look at your everything that you put out to the world, like, do I hit those greens? Do I hit those blues? Do I hit those reds? Do I hit those yellow? I mean, obviously, the blue is really, really important. It's not like a 20-20, 25-25, 25-25 split you should be
Yeah.
doing here. You should possibly be very heavily within the blues, and then probably, like, let's say 50% blue, then maybe, let's say 30% like green, and then 10 and 10. Do you know what I mean? But you've got to be hitting all of these people to keep. I mean, this is what I do, and it seems to work. Whether it will work for everybody else, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think you've got to be breaking up your content with this idea of making sure that you're connecting everybody or connecting with everybody you can, and different people on different stuff, for example.
Yeah. A good way to sum up would be fun, facts, and feelings, the 3 Fs.
Yeah, fun, facts, and feelings. Yeah, that's exactly
And
that.
then you'll hit all those dots.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something that has well, and not necessarily. It doesn't. It's not a home run every single time, but it does allow me to assess my content and rethink my content in different ways. You know, who am
Yeah.
I hitting when I put this out? You know, is this going to resonate how I want it to resonate? And I think if you can add that feeling, emotion into your brand and your work, you'll start to see a massive uptake in your clients because they connect with you ultimately.
Yeah. I want to go cycle back to something you said while you were explaining the marketing, which was we need to be willing to be happy in the present circumstance we're in. And I think part of that is being willing to say, I haven't reached the level I want to, and I need to be able to fail continually a couple of times till I get to the space where I have accomplished that skill or that task that I need to learn how to do. You don't know how to do social media, that's a skill you need to learn. And so you need to be willing to play and fail and experiment to get there. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the relationship between creativity and failure and how you deal with that, because a lot of times
Is it backwards? I don't know. It says my aim is to be slightly less shit every single day.
Exactly.
That is actually on my personalized notebooks.
Ooh, fun.
And that is bang on point of what you're saying. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, and the world puts a lot of pressure. Like never, like what we kind of mentioned before, like never before has the need to be famous, you know, been so important as it is now. Yeah, people aren't looking to build a career. They're looking to be famous within a couple of years. If they're not, they're going to do something else. And I think as creators and as creatives, it's essential that we are wrong sometimes, because it's that's when you learn the most, is when if everybody's telling you you're great, if you're only doing work for your mum and dad and they tell you how great you are all the time, you're going to get fuck all nowhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what you need to be doing is, you know, you need to embrace the fact that you will never be perfect. You will never be a finished article, but you will always be the very best you. And I think that's something, and that's why I always talk about, like we have just done a minute ago, is embracing your own journey, sharing what you're learning, like sharing the fact that I tried this and it just didn't work. So I pivoted and moved to something else, you know, like really embracing. The thing is, many people, not many, I hate to generalize actually, like some, are still generalizing. Some people, I'm just going to do it, you know, don't like the feeling of failure. Whereas if you can get, and none of us do, but when you learn that it's an essential part of succeeding, you start to have a better relationship with it. It's like you just got to change the lens somewhat. So rather than thinking, oh, my client never likes my work, or blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, like, what could I have done better? Or, and you've also got to remember, like, especially when you're working with the client, it might not always be on you. It
Yeah.
could be on the client, but these are red flags, key moments, things you learn from as you grow as well. You
Mm.
know, you start to trust your skills better. You start to communicate what you're going to do better. You start to communicate and sell your work better. And then you start to get, if a client starts changing stuff around, like you've got a contract in place where they can't do that. Like these are all the things that you learn through failure. You know, I succeed now more because I failed shitloads when I was younger, you know, growing up in this industry, you know. The amount I used to do unlimited revisions on logos, you know,
Oh my
fucking
gosh.
hell, what a wanker. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is what I'm talking about, but it bit me in the ass one too many times. And I was like, I've got to change this. However good I feel I am, it's not always me. You know, there is another person I'm working with here, so I need to protect myself. So you start to add in like a number of revisions to your process. But I failed and it bit me in the ass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I learned and I grew. And I think you've just got to, like, I don't think if you're not failing, you're not doing it right, and you're not trying hard enough. Ultimately, is what I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you're winning every single day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
I wouldn't want
I
to be that
I
guy.
100% agree. I mean, like for me, putting in the 50% deposit clause came because I got screwed over so many times where I never got that payment, and you're
Yeah,
chasing them, and it doesn't
yeah.
happen. And so it's actually became a way for me to almost vet clients is if they paid the 50% upfront straight away,
They're
they're
a good
gonna pay
client.
the rest.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
If they don't,
yeah.
okay, that's a
Red
red
flag.
flag.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's like, I think that's, you know, and as much as you can teach people,
Yeah.
like, this is what you should do, add these things into your process, there still has to be an element of self learning,
Yeah.
you know, because you can learn so much from what's happened to other people, but everybody's journey is going to be slightly different. They're going to be
Mm,
slightly different bends or wavy roads, along the way. And I think there's no better lesson than one that you have learned yourself. I think is a good way to put it,
yeah. Yeah.
because yeah, you cannot predict human nature or anything like that. And like some of the best life lessons I've
Mm,
learned are through some very bad client experiences. Not very bad. Like say it like it's really bad. Like okay, I might have lost some money. Like nobody died for fuck's sake. But do you know what I mean? You do
yeah.
when it's on you and
Yeah.
it's on your business, and you needed that money to pay your bills, and now you can't do it, or now you've got to do this. It's very real, and you
Mm,
make sure that you learn from that, and you go forward with a slightly better understanding of what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And you can't learn that from a book. You know, you can learn it from a book. You learn it better going through it because it hurts more, doesn't
yeah.
it? You know,
Yeah. It
yeah,
becomes real. It's not just
yeah,
a concept in your head.
yeah,
And
exactly, yeah,
I think the other thing that constantly reminds me of this is actually having kids and
mm,
watching how they learn because as a kid, you start with imitating, right? You're
yeah,
imitating the people around you, you're imitating your siblings.
yeah,
And the first couple of times you fall over, you smack your head, you fall on
yeah,
your bum, and then you get up and you do it again and again. And like seeing that reminds me that it's such a normal thing to fail.
yeah,
And we should just become more cognitive about the fact that that's actually how we learn
yeah,
is that layer of okay,
yeah.
it didn't work this way. Okay, it's time to try something different.
Yeah, but it's also that it's a fantastic point, and if
Yeah.
I can just kind of go a little bit further, it's the sense of play and the sense of
Mm,
playful abandon. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I'm going to put my hand in that fire, and as you know, and then you know what I mean. Obviously, we're
Yeah.
not wanting our kids to do that.
Yeah.
I've got a little 5 month old now who is just starting to move, and like you say, it's interesting to watch them. But kids play
Yeah.
and they learn by playing. Whereas I think as adults, we start to get that stripped out of us
Mm.
because of life, you know. And I think if you can continue to play with your work, with your ideas, you know, when you're not at work, you know, don't sit on the sofa and fucking play computer games. Or if I mean, to be fair, I can't say that. If you want to do that, do that. But my point is like, do something different, you
Mm.
know, learn a language, you know, exercise more, go climb a mountain, climb a tree. Like this playful energy is, I think it's even proven to enhance creativity. The more you're playing,
Yeah.
the better your creativity is going to be. And if you're doing the same thing all the time in your spare time, you know, it's got to remember, it's like a muscle. Creativity is like a muscle, and he's training and he's exercising. You know, and that's why, like, when I'm talking to other logo designers or brand identity designers, you know, and they're telling me that all they're doing is reading logo books, and I'm like, dude, fucking put that shit down. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Read anything apart from a logo book, because that is where all these ideas come from, all these different interpretations, and like I said, this rethinking structure, like taking stuff from architecture, graffiti, calligraphy, you know, fine art. You know, this is where a lot of my ideas are found.
Just building on that, I wanted to say, I think we've lost the art of being bored. You know,
Yeah,
we play when we're bored because
yeah,
we want to entertain ourselves. And right now, the easy route out is to pick up your phone and
oh
you're
yeah,
you're you're getting that dopamine hit or whatever.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
when we were kids, you didn't have that. And so you're like, okay, I'm bored.
yeah,
Let's create this random game out of like
yeah.
boxes and sticks or something.
Yeah,
Or
let's go build a
yeah,
bracken
or,
den,
yeah,
or go and climb
yeah.
a tree, make a tree
Or
house.
yeah, or
Yeah,
build a clubhouse out of like
yeah.
leftover pieces and stuff
No,
like that.
it's so true. Like, yeah, it is. Yeah, as you say, the ability. Yeah, it's tough to not switch off now, isn't it? In that
Yeah,
regard,
yeah,
you know, like I'll be on the sofa sometimes, and my phone will be in my hand, and I don't even remember picking it up. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
sure we've all been there
yeah,
where we're like, how the fuck did that get there? Do you know what I mean? It's like almost like just nature now, isn't it?
yeah,
Just kind of scrolling through it, looking at watching a movie whilst looking through Instagram. It's
yeah.
just so normal now. Which is probably why it's really good to, well, I've read a book, was a dopamine detox. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? Like have points in your day. Like it's like when you're running a business, you know, especially if it is online, you have to be visible, you have to be accessible. But there can be points in your day where you're not.
yeah.
And like I very much, my mornings are James time. You know, James where he completes his most important tasks time. Emails off, phones off, so I can get all of the shit I really need to get done in that day. So during that 4 or 5 hour period, nothing. Just
Mm,
me and my work, no bibbing, beeping. And then, you know, in the afternoon, once I've got all of my busy, big tasks done, if I get distracted a little bit, it's okay. If I want to
mm,
market myself, it's okay because I've done that one big task for the day. And I think problem is if you've got access to it all the time,
yeah,
you think you're doing an 8 hour day, but in fact you're doing a 3.5 hour day because you're never really concentrating on anything.
yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something. It's like trying to get like a point in your day, like whether it's a walk in the morning and a walk in the evening, where you don't even take your phone
Mm,
or turn your phone off. So if you do, you know, obviously if you injure yourself, you might want it and you could turn it back on. But you know, I don't take my phone on dog walks. You know
nice.
what I mean?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's just something where, because I have been there in the past where I am walking the dog on a beautiful day, the sun's out, birds are tweeting, and I'm looking at fucking Instagram. And I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing with my life? You know what I mean? So now I've just decided not to take it. And like if my wife's with me, she'll have her phone, I won't have mine. But she's
yeah,
much better at being offline than me.
yeah.
So you know, yeah, definitely making time in the day for detox, I think is really important.
Well, speaking of not being able to switch off, I'm curious. has becoming a dad shifted your perspective on business and work and being able to, you know, create more of a balance between that? Because I suppose, at least for me, it felt like my responsibility or completely shifted in
Hmm.
one sense. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, priorities need to change in some level.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So I'm 5 months into my dad journey.
Yeah.
And as I still work 12, 14-hour days. But I suppose before it was for me, like, it was something that I've gotten a very addictive personality. This was the problem with drugs and alcohol and all the rest of it. Now it's kind of work. But like, and my wife's great. My wife is she is a happy to be stay at home mum who looks after me and looks after Rocco. And she knows how important work is to me, because it's more like work for me. Like, this isn't like, I am way more than what I do. I'm way more than a logo designer. I truly believe I'm here to change people's lives, bring positive impact to people. So my mission is much bigger than the work that I do, and there is nothing that will stop me from doing that. I do um, give myself more time offline. I used to post every single day on social media. Now I post 3 times a week, to make sure that I am. I don't think there's ever such a thing as balance. I don't. I think all the greatest stuff happens at the extremes. If you want to become truly exceptional at something, balance is impossible. Um, but I do think what it's actually, I read it in a book, I think it's called The One Thing. It's talking about counterbalance.
Yeah.
So when you're working, fucking work and work really, really, really hard. But
Yeah.
then when you've got time off, don't fucking work. Just have time off. And I think this is the problem, is where people, for example, maybe cloud those journeys. So they think they're working, but they might be pointlessly bumming around on Instagram or texting their mates or doing whatever. And then also vice versa, over here at this end, they're on the sofa with their family on their phones answering emails.
Yeah.
I'm very good at being all in, then all in. And I make sure that I take weekends off. Obviously, I might do a post on social media, but that takes up an hour of my day. But that's essential for me to continue my journey, because ultimately my job is to make Rocco as proud of me as possible,
Mm.
and I want him to have the best life, as good a life as possible. I know I need to be in that, and all the things that I'm doing right now are going to allow me to do that, and that, I think, is my answer. I probably could be better. But right now, when he can't walk or shit for himself or eat or anything, and he's just on my wife's boob, I've
Yeah.
still got a bit of time.
Yeah.
When he's up and moving, it will be very different, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
again, one foot in the present, one foot in the future. I know that my priorities will change when he's got stuff after school, or he's got this going on, or he's got that going on. But when he hasn't got that, I'm going to be in here helping, like, filling my purpose. I think that's my mission's too big to ignore.
That's good. Yeah, I think you're right in that sense that splitting those different worlds and being 100% in each world at the time you're in that world
Mm,
makes much more sense and much more impact in the long run
mm.
versus being 50% in both worlds.
Yeah,
And,
it's like
and
going on holiday and taking your laptop and
yeah,
working all day. Like, if you're
yeah,
going to go on holiday, go on holiday. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? If you're
Yeah.
gonna work, stay at work. And like, I think this is the problem though, because of these, you
Yeah.
know, like you're so accessible. Like if somebody emails you, you feel like you have to email them back straight away because and
Yeah.
like messages now say read on them. That's the
Yeah.
worst thing on the planet. You know what I mean? So, I think, yeah, like we just talked about, I think if we can get to a place where like because like I said, if you really truly like the greatest sports people, the greatest business people, they have no balance. Their balance isn't there's no such thing.
Yeah.
If you want to become something great, you have to work with that counterbalancing. But when you're resting, properly rest. When you're
Yeah.
working, properly work. And like you say, like crowding those things, like working on your holiday or going out for a meal with your family and you're all on your phones. I know it's not always easy, which I'll probably no doubt find out as my little boy grows up. But, I think it's just this kind of mindset of like always being on or always being off. Um, I can have a balance if I work while I'm on holiday or kind of play while I'm at work. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's an interesting one,
Yeah.
ultimately, but difficult, very difficult.
True. So, what's one piece of advice you would give the next generation of artists or creator who's coming up behind you?
Mm. Effort is free. That's the
Good.
one. I've got that engraved on my ring, my Made by James ring. It's something that I mean, you could go deep and proper wank into it. Well, to put effort in, you need to pay for food, for energy. But
Yeah.
the big thing that drives me is that I know I control the amount of effort I put into anything, and
Mm,
that's up to me. I own that, and it's also free. It costs me nothing to show up every single day, even on some days when I don't really want to. But as long as I keep doing it, I'll become exactly what I want to become. It's even written on here. Look, here it is. Effort is free.
brilliant. Nice.
Um, so yeah, that would be my piece of advice. 100%.
And the last question I always like to end with is, what does the word fruitful mean to you?
What does the word what? Sorry,
Fruitful.
fruitful. Abundance, happiness, an abundance of happiness.
Nice.
I would say.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think that's what fruitful makes me feel happy.
Nice.
A lot of happiness. Yeah.
It's good. Well, hey, thank you all for listening to this episode of The Fruitful Life. I hope you walk away with some nuggets of wisdom. If you did, please do me a favor and leave a rating and a comment to let me know what you think of the show. Also, consider telling a friend that might like it. As always, be true, be you, stay fruitful.